Have you ever heard someone say, I'm spiritual but not religious? We're going to explore that topic a little bit more. And I'd like to welcome back to the stage Misha Blaze, Yasin Sar, and Justin Baldoni. Before we get started, maybe each one of you can just tell us about, what do you do?
So I'm an artist and an author, and my husband and I own a green building company in Austin, Texas, where we're working to try and merge the race equity movement with the green building movement. And we have 2 sons, and that's what we're up to right now in Austin, Texas.
All right.
And she wrote an amazing book that just came out.
Yes,
Yes,
that's right.
I wrote a book.
What was the name of the book?
So my book is called This Phenomenal Life.
It's a phenomenal book.
Well, thank you.
So I'm Yasin. I am from the Gambia in West Africa. I'm an educator, and I am a mother to 100 girls, 35 boys, and 2 biological kids. So basically, this is what I don't do. I don't get dressed up and sit in front of audiences. Usually you'll find me in a village in Africa in flip-flops, jeans and a t-shirt, running around dealing with teenagers. So my focus is girls' education, and my husband and I went back to work with women and girls, and the idea is to do programming and train the girls so that they can show the benefits of girls' education in their lives right now, so that the conversation changes from, give girls an opportunity, to, I want an educated girl in my neighborhood because of all the good that she can do in my neighborhood. So that's what I do.
Awesome. Wow.
That's all.
I don't think I have any place on this panel. I mean, wow. My name's Justin Baldoni. I'm just an actor. I'm on a TV show called Jane the Virgin, and I run a company called Wayfair Entertainment with my Muslim brother over there who's actually filming. So you got a Baha'i and a Muslim trying to change the world together and create what we call disruptively inspirational content. So we want to make sure that everything we create takes into consideration the time our audience is giving us and leaves them feeling something that can hopefully empower them to change the world around them. And my personal goal is to make everything I touch a little bit better and try to bring unity to everything that we're doing. So now I got to tell your story.
Awesome. One of the reasons that we thought it would be wonderful to have the 3 of you on this panel is because you come from very different walks of life. So your stories are inspirational, and you have been able to be spiritual but be religious. And I love it when Justin, you are interviewed on major programs, and you're very comfortable about the fact. Somebody coming from Hollywood, a lot of times you would think that it's not a comfortable place to be when you position yourself as someone religious. So I thought it was wonderful to have the 3 of you from different walks of life here. So a recent study showed that about 72%, or up to 72%, of millennials, they consider themselves spiritual but not religious. Why is that?
I think part of it is when somebody says to me, I'm spiritual and not religious, I hear somebody that's saying, don't put me in a box. That I want my spirituality to be my business. So even if I'm doing something wrong or something you disagree with, I don't want to classify myself so that you can say, you're a Christian, therefore you should be doing this, this, this. Or you're a Muslim, and therefore you should be doing this, this, and this. So that's, I think, part of what I hear when somebody says, I'm spiritual and not religious. It is, I want my spiritual journey to just be my business and to not be placed or judged. The second part I hear is religious people can be just pains in the butt. And so I don't want to be associated with those people, right?
Yeah.
So one of my Christian friends has said to me before that one of the things that makes him laugh is this saying that was said to him, that somebody said to him, their prayer is, Jesus, please save me from your followers. And and for me, the way I think about that is, my husband and I talk about this a lot. This idea that we really, when we conflict because of religion, we're really fighting about who taught us to love. That each manifestation came and they suffered and they gave their lives so that we would follow their example. And when we conflict and when we judge each other, I'm fighting and you're fighting about who taught us how to love instead of just loving. And so it's sad, but it doesn't surprise me then when people say, Jesus, Muhammad, baha'u'llah, fill in the blank, please save me from your followers. So I think those are the two things that perhaps drive that generation to say that, in my opinion.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's not wanting to be in a box. I think, so I can really only speak from my experience, and I was one of these people who very much identified as being spiritual and not religious until my early 20s. And, for me, I believe that it's just our birthright to have an unfettered search for truth, right? Everyone deserves that, and many people don't know that they have that, which is unfortunate. But I was raised very secular. Even though my father's family was Catholic and my mother's family was Christian, they raised me without any religion, with the idea that I could search out and find for myself or not find for myself, whatever. But as a result, I was raised with no religious context at all. I mean, I never read the Bible, since I came from this Christian background, never read the Bible, let alone the Quran or anything else. Never was taught how to pray or even talked to about God as a concept. And never went to church ever. But I definitely knew that religion was oppressive, and it was for people who couldn't think for themselves. And so I was very liberated, right, in my belief. I always thought that up through my 20s. I was like, I'm really free. I'm a free thinker, and I'm liberated. So you can imagine my shock when I took a religious studies class and for the first time ever studied the Bible, studied the Quran, taught by scholars, learned about these religions on their own terms, and I was fascinated and floored and fell in love. And so I realized two things. One, I realized what I thought was religion wasn't what religion really was. And actually what I thought was liberation had become its own trap. You know what I'm saying? So I think that is a cautionary tale, because I think it's important for every seeker after truth to have that journey and to realize, I think it's a really momentous moment when you realize you have your own agency, your own free will to choose what you believe. But in my case, I had to be careful that I didn't think that then my liberation was actually just imprisoning me in another dogma, a secular dogma, which it really was.
Interesting. Justin, what do you think?
I might say something ridiculous. Maybe we'll just say it's the fever and you can edit it out. I have a 2-year-old daughter. My 2-year-old daughter does not want to do anything that I tell her to do. She thinks that she knows what's best for her.
At 2.
At 2. I say, sweetheart, okay, can you come here? And she smiles at me and she runs the other way. And I've been kind of exploring this idea that God is this all-loving, unknowable parent. And we are a bunch of 2-year-olds. And we think we know what's best for us. Right? Mm-hmm. So just like my daughter, I say, don't touch the stove, sweetheart, it's hot. The first thing she does is she wants to touch the stove. Right? That's our design. And I'm watching it happen. Yeah. It was kind of an assumption before, but now I have a 2-year-old, and I'm watching it happen. I also recognize my own impulses. that are exactly like my daughters. So we, I think, as a population, as human beings, have a tendency to want to push the envelope starting from birth. So when someone tells us something, we don't want to just do it. We want to test it, right? But I think what's happening is that I think our egos are getting too big. And I think we're forgetting the purpose of religion. And we're confusing what spirituality and religion really are. And so I think of it like God as this parent, and he, with his love and his grace, comes down, sends a messenger, sends a Jesus who dies on the cross for our sins, right? Sends a Muhammad, sends a Buddha to basically suffer so that we can be given as a gift, so that we can advance as a species to eventual enlightenment, right? But because there are constraints, because there are laws, because there are things that are like the adult versions of don't put your hand in the stove, we naturally want to resist. And so what millennials, I think, are doing now, when you brought up the millennial number, is we're saying, all right, well, this thing works for me, and this part works for me, and that part works for me, but that part doesn't feel right. So you know what? I'm going to step away from religion and just brand my own idea of what spirituality is.
Yeah.
So we think that we can take the parts of religion that are good and dispose of the parts of religion that are bad and still find happiness.
Yeah.
And I think that's stupid. I think it's ridiculous. Because I imagine, I go, well, what would it look like if every city in the world decided to not have government at all and to say, you know what, everybody, you're all smart, you're all adults, we're gonna disable all the traffic lights, we're gonna get rid of all the police, we're gonna get rid of everything. You guys, you all know what's right and what's wrong. Go. It'd be a freaking disaster. But we forget that those things are there for our protection as well. That those things are there to help us. They're not just there because some guy is like, oh, no. You look, you need to stop at a red light because I said so. No, you stop at a red light so you don't hit another car and kill yourself and somebody else, so that there's order. And we forget that religion is also there to bring us order. Order for ourselves, order for each other, right? But I think that spirituality and religion are two pieces of something that need to go together seamlessly. And I don't think you can have one without the other, right? Because I think that spirituality is a me mentality. It's a self thing, and religion is a we thing, right? One of my favorite quotes from abdu'l-baha is he was riding in the back of a taxi cab, and he was sleeping, and the two gentlemen that were in the car with him thought he was sleeping, and he woke up at one point because he was listening to them talk. And he was upset, and he goes, me, I. These are the curse words of the future. And that's, I think, what the problem is young people today, millennials, Gen Z. I mean, our worlds are on our phones. Our worlds, we're on YouTube. We broadcast our lives. I'm guilty of it. It's what we do. But it's about us. Spirituality is about ourselves. Religion is about all of us together.
Yeah.
True. I mean, well said. I have many friends, great, amazing friends, that they go to yoga camps, retreats, sweat camps, all kinds of stuff to find spirituality, but they do run away from religion, which, at the risk of a few millennials right now abandoning this video and going on to the next one, is it that many of us, we want the good stuff, but without the obligation that the religion brings about.
Of course. Yeah, but I think that goes back to what I'm saying, like, when it's your own conscious act of your own free will to choose that religious path with all of its limitations, then there's total freedom in that movement. So there is, like, I don't feel oppressed at all. I became religious. I don't feel at all limited or at all oppressed. If anything, I feel more free. I have defined certain boundaries, and within those boundaries, I have, like, total immense freedom. But I chose that for myself, and I think that people are reacting against having something put upon them is good. That's positive, right? We all, like the Baha'i faith teaches, essentially, we all need to independently search for truth ourselves. And without that, you are just having something put upon you. And you may just suffer through that and do these things because you've always been taught to do these things, and so for good reason you feel oppressed and limited, and you see that as being
Yeah.
Holding you back. Thank you.
So, by the way, I would like to take just one question from the audience. And the way we'll take that question is, we have about 10 minutes left. And if you want to ask a question, use hashtag BahaiTeachings.org. And if, Andre, nobody asks any questions, make one up. So let's talk about, you just touched on this, that if you choose something yourself, the relationship becomes very different. And of course, in the Baha'i faith, we have the concept of independent investigation of the truth. How has that played a role in your lives? And what would you tell someone, I say I'm spiritual, not religious. What would you tell me to make me think that maybe I should independently investigate the truth?
I would say that I think that's where the real conversation happens.
Yeah.
Right? Where we take the next step. Okay, you're spiritual, you're religious. What do we do next? And where we share our stories. And I think for me, this idea of independent investigation of truth always leads to the person recognizing that their religion or spirituality is actually between them and God. And I can have those conversations that, the Baha'is are great and not great. The Christians are great and not great. Whatever it is the people, the believers, the followers that make it. And so when we talk about, for example, Baha'is not having mosques or places where they go to worship, and that the church, if you will, or the body of believers make the religion. However, whether you stay in it or not is directly linked to God, is your relationship to God. And so I call myself a Baha'i, and the nice Baha'is, the great Baha'is, are an addition to that. But the not so nice Baha'is don't have the power to take my faith away from me. So then it becomes that. And so if I made a lot of money, for example, there's this fight in the US about taxation and do you tax the rich and so on and so forth. But if I, because of my relationship to God, say, take this and use it this way, go ahead and tax me, that seems so much more powerful. So spirituality then begins to inform how I live my life and what I do with those difficult things, but it is my relationship to God. And so that still gives me that independence. And so I think when the conversation gets there and we realize that the people and the religion, in fact, is just a manifestation of that higher link, then we quickly begin to realize I need a religion because left to myself, I am that 2-year-old. And I might not really like that person that I am. I'll give you an example. My husband and I, Baha'is have to wait for consent. So if you want to get married, the idea is if you cannot even bring your family together, how are you going to be talking about bringing the world together? So I really wanted to marry my husband. And my parents, because I come from a Muslim family, could not fathom the idea of me marrying somebody that wasn't a Muslim. So I had a decision to make. I could just go ahead and marry him, or I could wait for consent because that's what my religion says. So I hounded my parents for years, for 2 years, while I waited for them to say yes. But then the day that we got married, when my family eventually got to know David and love him, the day we got married and I looked at my mom's face, the smile on her face, if I could go back, I would give anything to see that. So religion gave me that because I said, because of my relationship with baha'u'llah, this difficult thing that I'm going through, I'll go through. I'll go through to the point of building my house near David's house and us not living together and just waiting for my parents to give consent. But the fact that at the end of the day I could see, I had the bounty of seeing why he was saying religious family unity is so important. is something that I wouldn't have seen maybe as a millennial or whoever we're talking about. I didn't have the foresight, and thank God I had a higher being, a higher relationship that could keep me from burning my fingers on that stove.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think so many young people today think about that, like what you experienced, and they're like, well, that's so dumb. I want to be able to marry whoever I want to marry whenever I want to marry them. Like that's our first impulse. And I think there's a stigma around laws and rules.
Right.
It's this idea that religion is oppressive.
Right.
But historically it is. And it's also something that we have to realize and admit. Like historically religion has become oppressive, but it's not the religion itself. It's what man has made the religion to be, right? So man with his ego then takes the religion and the power of religion, and then he uses it to oppress. You look at confession, right? That's not in the Bible anywhere. There is no place that says you must confess your sins to another person, and then that person, that human being, has the ability to then absolve you of your sins, and then you're good to go to heaven. Find it for me, and if you find it for me, then I'll say I'm wrong. But it's not there, right? We make these things up. Man makes these things up. But the true message of Jesus was so far away from that, right? Jesus talked about his religion being built upon the shoulders of Peter, one person, right? So church is really, if we were here talking about God, right now we're in church, right? In Islam itself means to submit, right? So the religion itself is built around submitting ourselves to God. There's protection in the submitting ourselves to God. Protection that we can't see until we're there, and then we're looking back and going, oh, thank you for that.
Yeah.
And we just have this stigma, and we have to remember that just because religion has been a certain way does not mean that it is that way. And that's one of the things I love about being a Baha'i, is that baha'u'llah explains the purpose of the laws, right? He talks about the laws being not just a mere code of laws, but our protection. He uses the term a choice wine, which back then it meant like the greatest thing you could ever have, a protection for us, a gift. It's a gift from him to us, from God to us. It's not like this oppressive tool to say like, oh, well, you can't marry the man that you love because of this. It's saying, no. You can't marry them until your families come together because unity starts in the marriage, exactly like what you said. We don't drink in the Baha'i faith. I can't tell you how many people would love to become Baha'is, but they can't get around the drinking. And so I always say, like, you can still become Baha'i. It's between you and God. And there's nothing wrong with the sweat lodges and the ayahuasca ceremonies and like the essential oil gatherings and the crystals. There's nothing wrong with any of that stuff. In fact, when I meet people that are into that, I think that they're a step closer than anybody else. I want to be very, very clear. In fact, I had a fantastic conversation. My Uber driver, Bill, is here tonight because I'm sick, and so I didn't want to drive myself. And so I jumped in the car, and I made a new friend named Bill. And Bill had a hat that said, I love Jesus on, but he had a bunch of crystals in the car. And he's like, and we started talking about the fact that he doesn't believe in religion anymore, but he believes in spirituality. And I said, there's no coincidence. Why don't you come to this thing with me?
Oh, that's awesome.
But the main reason why Bill doesn't believe in religion anymore is because the people failed him. The pastors failed him.
Yes.
The human beings failed him. Jesus never failed him, right? But the manifestation of Jesus is what failed him. And I believe that is kind of the symptom of what's ailing young people today is they associate religion with people.
Some guy.
That's
And
right.
the people are what fail. And our faith, it goes so far. Shoghi Effendi says, like, do not look to the Baha'is. The Baha'is will always disappoint you. Always
Yes, he
disappoint
does.
you. But look to the teachings. Jesus says you will know them by their fruits. Right? But you look to the teachings. You don't look to the people. The people will always disappoint you. So you can't associate with religion with human beings.
Awesome. Great answer. So let's see, what's the question? How can you best allocate time for religious study with such a busy work schedule?
Just the idea of seeking spirituality, seeking truth, deepening my faith and my religion in general, which I believe is an ongoing process, a lifetime process. For me, there is no dichotomy. There is no, I'm working now, I'm with my family now, now is my time to think about spirituality and deepen my relationship with God. Certainly there's times I set aside, of course, to have, personal prayer, meditation. But I'm just curious, every moment of my day, I'm just, even right now is a great example. Like, here I am on a stage, all these people are looking at me, like, I'm always just kind of in wonder of what is happening in this world. And it's really never ending, right? I go outside and I'm awed by just the splendor of the natural world. I'm curious. I love people watching. I'm curious what's going on in everyone's lives. So for me, just this wonder at the mystery of the world is like for me, always present. It's always there. And I feel like that's part of my spiritual search, that I'm always just like, wow, what is the universe? What's my discussion with God or the universe right now through this particular set of circumstances? So that's kind of how I don't ever think of it as like this is one thing or the other, or dichotomy. It's always, to me, just like one journey through every moment of the day.
That's awesome. So Yasin, you have 100 kids. How do you find time?
I think it's so strange that we don't find the question strange. For me,
I agree so much.
that we don't find the question straight. I find the question so strange, and so I'm just going to explain how this brain is working. So if I face the audience and I said, "Gosh, you are so busy. How do you find time to brush your teeth, take a shower, and eat food and drink water just to go to work?" You're all going to laugh or think something's really wrong with me, right? And even to yourselves, if you don't, or do you know this? Like you eat some garlic or something and you start going, "I'm sorry, do I smell it?" Or, "Oh my God, I need to take a shower." And I think if we see ourselves for who we truly are, which is we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. Right. This is the essence of our being. And if this is the essence of our being, then that physical experience, that spiritual experience, they are mirror images of each other, right? So I don't have to find time to drink water. I am going to die if I don't drink water. And that's just it, right? So it's, the same way we do that is the same way everybody's doing that. When we are risking being spiritually deficient, we are not pleasant people. We don't like ourselves or shouldn't. And people that were around don't like us because we're snapping, we're mean, we're selfish, we stink. There's a spiritual funk that's there, right? So this is what, right? So you don't find time. We're human beings, but we're spiritual beings, and it's simple self-preservation, right? So that's why you're going to die, like I said. You're going to spiritually die, and you're going to be very unhappy, and you're going to be depressed, and you're going to be eventually sitting in a corner rocking back and forth. And because I don't like that, and I know that I have to drink water, eat food, I have to say some prayers, say, "Jesus, please help me now," whatever I need to say, or at least thank you, some sort of gratitude, and that's a prayer. I need to do something to just help my spirit survive before I lose it, and that's why.
Nice.
All right.
I have so many thoughts about this. Again, I'm going to apologize on behalf of my fever, but how do we not have time for the creator of time? That's the thing. I remember I was actually talking to Ahmed, my Muslim brother, right? And I remember he was talking about us not having time for the creator of time, and I thought it was so brilliant. This idea that, like, did you create time? No, you didn't create time. So we're talking about having time and making time for the unknowable essence that created it in the first place. That's crazy to me. And so anytime we go throughout our day and we're like, "Oh, we're too busy to do, we're too busy," right? I go back to, imagining what it would feel like when my daughter is too busy for me. And how much that would hurt. And the parents that are in the room, I'm sure you've experienced that. And I've done the same thing to my parents. But it's this feeling of like you love something so much, so you create it. We are the creation. But we're now too busy in the world that God created for him. And that breaks my heart a little bit as well. And when I don't have time for God, which is hilarious, that's what I go back to. And I have this, I have abdu'l-baha's quote on my arm, where there is love, nothing is too much trouble, and there is always time. And I use it in my personal life for my family because, business is crazy, life is crazy, like we're all busy people, right? But we're busy people because we're busy so that we can live.
Yeah.
But again, we have to go back to like we are alive. We're alive. We're living, breathing human beings that didn't create ourselves. So there's something much bigger going on that we're completely ignoring when we just choose or decide to not have time to investigate religion or not have time to pray or not have time to meditate, right? And then we just become all consuming about ourselves. And nobody has ever found happiness living a life that's only about themselves.
Yeah.
So all that being said, I agree completely with everything that you said. But it's just the idea that we have to just remember that God created us out of love. So whether you identify with a religion or not, whether you're spiritual or religious, to me, if you can go back to the idea that something created us because it loved us so much, and the only thing that somebody wants when they love something is for that love to be reciprocated, then you can look at it and go, well, then the reason I'm doing anything, the reason I'm studying faith, or the reason I'm up here talking, or the reason that you take care of 100 children, which is crazy and beautiful, is because of love. Love, right? Love is the secret of the universe. Love is why we were created. Love is what motivates us to go and pick up the Baha'i writings or a Bible or study the Quran, right? Love is what allows us to find the time to, while you have 100 children, fly out here to be on a panel.
Yeah.
Right? It's love that's the motivating factor. And if we can find love, love will then guide us to our search. And hopefully that search will help us realize that there is so much more to life than just ourselves. And that's how we can start to kind of solve the equation and the problem of religion versus spirituality. I think it starts with love.
The reaction you get means that it was a great question. So, because it's a question that I've heard a lot from people that, people are busy. How do you find time for all this? So, one last question, and you literally have 20 seconds each to respond. Why are you a Baha'i?
That's so mean.
You got 20
That's
seconds.
so mean.
Okay.
Not 20 minutes, Yasin.
20 seconds. I have two reasons.
10 seconds
I am a
each.
Baha'i because I haven't found anything better. I haven't found anything better that my spirit responds to and that guides me. And then the second one is I think it is the bounty of my parents. I think my parents as Muslims have worked so hard that I grew up understanding that when everything else fails, God is always there for me. So in my periods of the biggest struggles, instead of my parents holding me and just saying, it's okay, I'm here, they've said, it's okay, we're here, but turn to God. And I think that has been such a bounty in my life. So I don't feel like it's something I've earned. I feel like I've been lucky enough to find a spiritual path and a religion that responds to my spirit, and I can find a home there.
Thank you.
And that's
Thank
the
you.
Baha'i faith.
Thank you.
When I had a time in life when I did finally take responsibility for myself, and I said, I do have my own free will, I can make my own choices. And I had such a crisis in life, and I prayed for the first time. And if you've never prayed before, praying for the first time is a very strange feeling. And so I just said, God, if you're there, help me. I don't even know how to address you, but help me find a path. And through this grace of God and so many confirmations, it became very clear for me on my path that the Baha'i faith was what I already believed, had always believed. And it was like a homecoming into love. And so I just feel so thankful that for whatever reason, I had my eyes open enough to see that for my own life.
Wonderful.
I'm a Baha'i because I believe in baha'u'llah, and I believe that when he says that religion must be updated and be progressive based on mankind's evolution, that I feel so blessed to be living in a day and age where that's being shown and proven to be exactly the case right now. I'm a Baha'i because I believe that at the core of every religion is love. And just because somebody calls themselves a Muslim or a Jew or an atheist doesn't mean that they're going to be damned in hell for eternity. And I believe that the mission of mankind is to find our way to peace and unity. And the only way we can do that is through an all-loving creator that guides us along the way. And I think that for today's day and age, that the Baha'i faith is the solution and the answer to those problems and the ills of mankind. And it provides a necessary structure for me, because naturally I want to disobey every rule somebody puts in front of me. And I found that those laws and those rules have been my saving grace as a human being and as a man. And I couldn't be more grateful.
Thank you.